The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystal spires of New Harmony, the capital, city of Kepler 442b. The Zephyrian people moved through their daily routines with the gentle grace that had defined their species for thousands of years. Their bodies, translucent and shimmering like living diamonds, caught the light as they tended to their gardens and worked in their laboratories. Ambassador Lara Christhart stood on the observation deck of the Central Council building, watching children play in the park below. Their laughter tinkled like wind chimes in the morning breeze. She had never seen war, never known violence. None of them had. The Zephyrians had evolved beyond such primitive concepts, choosing instead to focus on art, science, and the cultivation of beauty. The first sign of trouble came as a shadow that darkened the sky. Lyra looked up to see massive ships descending through the atmosphere, their hulls black as midnight and bristling with weapons. The vessels were unlike anything in the Galactic databases, angular and predatory in design. "Alert all citizens." Lyra spoke into her communication device, her voice steady despite the fear growing in her chest. "Unknown vessels approaching. Seek shelter immediately." The ships landed with thunderous impacts that shook the ground for miles. From their bellies emerged creatures that made Lyra's crystalline heart freeze with terror. 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black steel, with claws that could tear through metal and eyes that burned with cruel intelligence. These were the Vorthons, though the Zephyrians had never heard that name before. The leader of the landing party, a massive brute with scars covering his armored hide, stepped forward. His voice boomed across the plaza like a war horn. "I am Commander Scare of the Vorthon Empire. This world now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately, or you will die slowly." Lyra descended from the building, her form shimmering with the natural bioluminescence that indicated extreme stress in her people. She approached the alien commander with diplomatic grace, despite her terror. "Great warrior," she said, using the most respectful tone she could manage. "We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no military. We can offer you our knowledge, our medical advances, our—" Scar's massive hand struck her across the face, sending her sprawling. The blow would have killed a human, but Zephyrian physiology was more resilient than their appearance suggested. Still, cracks appeared in her crystalline skin, leaking a substance that looked like liquid starlight. "You offer nothing," Scare growled. "You are prey. We are predators. This is the natural order." The Vorthons began their systematic destruction of New Harmony. Their weapons fired bolts of crimson energy that melted the beautiful crystal structures like ice in a furnace. Citizens fled in panic, their desperate cries echoing through the streets. The Zephyrians had defensive shields around their cities, but they were designed to protect against natural disasters, not military assault. Within hours, half the city was in ruins. The Vorthons herded the survivors into containment areas, separating families and treating the gentle beings like livestock. They took particular pleasure in terrorizing the children, their alien laughter mixing with the sound of crumbling buildings. Dr. Zen Lightweaver, the planet's chief scientist, found Lyra in the ruins of the council building. The elderly Zephyrian's normally bright aura was dim with despair. "The outer colonies are reporting the same attacks," he said. "They have dozens of ships. Our people are dying, Lyra. We have no weapons, no way to fight back." Lyra struggled to her feet, her injured face reflecting the flames consuming her world. "Then we do what we have always done when faced with the impossible. We reach out to others." They made their way to the planet's primary communication center, one of the few buildings still standing. The Vorthons had not yet realized its importance, dismissing it as another piece of alien architecture. Inside, the quantum communication array hummed with power, capable of sending messages across the galaxy in real time. "Contact the Galactic Council," Lyra ordered. Dr. Lightweaver's fingers danced across the crystalline controls. After several minutes, he shook his head. "The Council representatives are unavailable. The Altarian Empire sends their sympathy, but cannot interfere in local conflicts. The Nexus Coalition suggests we negotiate a surrender. One by one, The civilizations of the galaxy offered empty words or turned away entirely. The Zephyrians had freely shared their medical knowledge, their art, their friendship with dozens of species. Now, when they needed help, they found themselves alone. There is one more option, Dr. Lightweaver said quietly. The restricted frequency. The one that reaches the soul system. Lyra's eyes widened. The humans? But they're just a developing species. They only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. They're the only ones who haven't refused to help, Lightweaver replied, through the building's shattered windows. They could see Vorthan soldiers dragging Zephyrian civilians from their homes. The screams of the innocent filled the air as the invaders began their systematic torture, feeding on the terror of their victims. Lyra made her decision. She stepped up to the communication array and began to record. This is Ambassador Lyra Christard of the Zephyrian people on Kepler 442b. To any who hear this transmission, we are dying. Our world falls to monsters who kill for pleasure and torture for sport. We have no weapons, no warriors, no way to defend ourselves. We are a peaceful people who have only ever sought to help others. Her voice broke as an explosion rocked the building. Through the smoke, they could see Vorthan ships beginning their orbital bombardment of the remaining cities. We have reached out to the galaxy, and the galaxy has abandoned us. If there is anyone out there who still believes that the innocent deserve protection, if there is anyone who thinks that bullies should not be allowed to prey on the weak, please, someone help us. We are not asking for conquest or revenge. We are simply asking for the right to exist. The transmission ended just as Vorthan soldiers broke down the door. Lyra and Dr. Lightweaver were dragged away, but not before the message had been sent racing across the stars at the speed of light, in the depths of space. The message was received by listening posts and communication arrays across the galaxy. Most ignored it. Some filed it away as another plea from another dying world. But in a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, the message was received by very different ears. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the communication center of the Galactic Defense Initiative, a facility buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains. He had been monitoring galactic communications for over a decade, waiting for the right moment, the right cause. As he listened to the Zephyrian ambassador's desperate plea, his jaw tightened. "Sir," he spoke into his secure line, "we have a code. 7 situation. The Zephyrians are under attack by an unknown aggressive species. They're requesting assistance." General Lisa Hayes received the call in her Pentagon office. She had been waiting for this moment for years, ever since Earth had first detected the brutal politics of galactic civilization. The galaxy was full of predators who preyed on the weak, and Earth had been quietly preparing for the day when they would have to remind the universe that humans were still here. Confirmed. Morrison wrote the message to Admiral Stone immediately. And Morrison? Her voice carried the weight of decades of military service. It's time. The message reached Admiral Frank Stone as he reviewed intelligence reports on galactic military capabilities. The weathered veteran had fought in every human conflict of the past 30 years, but he had been saving his best soldiers for something bigger. Something that would announce to the galaxy that Earth was no longer just another developing world. He listened to the Zephyrian plea 3 times, his expression growing harder with each repetition. Finally, he picked up his secure phone and dialed a number that had never been used in anger. "This is Admiral Stone, authorization code Alpha 77. I need Delta 40 activated immediately." Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, in a facility that officially didn't exist, red lights began flashing. The most classified military unit in human history received their first operational orders. The hunt was about to begin. The elevator descended through solid rock for what felt like forever. Commander Jake Morrison watched the numbers on the display count down past levels that didn't exist on any official building plans. Level 50, 60, 70, the elevator kept going. Down into the heart of Cheyenne Mountain, past the public military facilities, past the classified research labs, into depths that few people knew existed. At level 127, the elevator stopped. The doors opened to reveal a corridor that looked like something from a science fiction movie. The walls were made of some kind of metal that seemed to absorb light, and the air hummed with energy from systems that Morrison couldn't identify. Armed guards in black uniforms stood at attention, their faces hidden behind masks that looked more like machine interfaces than protective gear. "Commander Morrison," one of the guards said in a voice that sounded artificially enhanced, "you're expected. Please follow me." They walked through a series of security checkpoints that scanned everything from his DNA to his brain patterns. Each door they passed was marked with warnings in multiple languages, including some that Morrison didn't recognize. The final door bore a simple sign, Delta Force Zero, authorized personnel only. The guard pressed his palm against the scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond was a briefing room unlike anything Morrison had ever seen. The walls were covered with screens showing real-time intelligence feeds from across the galaxy. Star maps displayed the locations of every known civilization, military installation, and trade route. In the center of the room sat 12 chairs, arranged around a holographic projector, but it was the people in those chairs that made Morrison's breath catch in his throat. He had read their files, but seeing them in person was different. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were something else entirely. Squad leader Alex Turner looked up as Morrison entered. The man appeared to be in his early 30s, with the kind of lean build that came from years of intense training. But his eyes were different. They moved constantly, tracking motion and calculating distances with inhuman precision. When he stood to greet Morrison, his movements were fluid and controlled, like a predator conserving energy. "Commander Morrison," Turner said, extending his hand. "We've been waiting for this day." Morrison shook Turner's hand and immediately understood why the man was the leader of this unit. The grip was firm but not crushing, controlled but not weak. More importantly, Morrison could sense the raw power held in check behind those calm eyes. "Let me introduce you to the team," Turner continued. "This is Maria Santos, our technology specialist." Maria Santos was a woman in her late 20s with short black hair and arms that showed the subtle scars of cybernetic enhancement. When she smiled, Morrison noticed that her teeth were slightly too white, too perfect. Her handshake sent a small electric tingle through his fingers. "Pleasure to meet you, Commander," she said. "I've been monitoring the Zephyrian situation through their communication networks. The Vorthans are using standard military encryption. It won't take me long to break into their systems." "Ben Parker, our marksman," Turner said, indicating a tall man with sandy hair who nodded but didn't speak. Parker's eyes were the most unsettling thing about him. They seemed to be constantly measuring distances and angles as if he was perpetually lining up shots. Morrison had read that Parker could calculate the trajectory of a bullet through 3 dimensions while accounting for planetary rotation and atmospheric conditions. Looking at him now, Morrison believed it. "Katie Young, demolitions expert," Turner continued. The woman who stood up was surprisingly small, barely 5 feet tall, with blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. But her handshake was firm, and Morrison noticed chemical burns on her fingers that spoke of hands-on experience with explosives. "I've been studying Vorthan ship construction," Katie said cheerfully. "Their armor plating has a weakness in the molecular structure. A few well-placed charges and their flagship will fold like paper." Turner introduced the rest of the team one by one. Nick Hayes, their communications specialist, who could hack into any system and make it sing opera if he wanted to, Dr. Sam Clark. Their xenobiologist, who had memorized the anatomy of every known alien species. Engineer Pete Davis, who could build a faster-than-light engine out of spare parts and determination. Each member of Delta Force Zero was a master of their field, but they were more than that. They had been enhanced, augmented, and trained to be the perfect soldiers for fighting in space. Some of the enhancements were physical, others were mental. All of them were designed to give humans an edge against alien species that might be stronger, faster, or more advanced. "Sir," Morrison said to Turner, "I need to understand what we're dealing with." The Vorthons have conquered 17 worlds in the past decade. They're not just another aggressive species. They're apex predators who use fear as a weapon. Turner nodded and activated the holographic projector. The air above the table filled with a three-dimensional image of a Vorthon warrior. 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black steel, with claws that could cut through metal and eyes that burned with intelligent malice. "We know," Turner said. "We've been studying them for years. The Vorthons are everything the galaxy fears. They're strong, fast, intelligent, and completely without mercy. They don't just kill their enemies, they terrorize them. They don't just conquer worlds, they break the spirit of entire civilizations." Maria Santos touched a control on her wrist, and the hologram zoomed in on the Vorthon's claws. Their natural weapons can penetrate most known armor. Their hide can deflect energy weapons that would kill a human instantly. They're designed by evolution to be perfect killers. "Then how do we fight them?" Morrison asked. Turner smiled, and for a moment, Morrison saw something in his eyes that made him understand why this man led the most dangerous soldiers in human history. It wasn't cruelty or bloodlust. It was the calm confidence of a predator who had found worthy prey. "We fight them the way humans have always fought," Turner said. "We adapt, we learn. We become better than they are." He gestured to his team. "The Vorthons are apex predators on their world. But they've never faced humans. They don't know that we're persistence hunters. They don't know that we can track prey for days without stopping. They don't know that we're at our most dangerous when we're angry." Katie Young laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "And right now, we're very angry." The briefing continued for hours. Morrison learned about the enhancements that made these soldiers more than human. Turner's reflexes had been enhanced to the point where he could dodge bullets fired at point-blank range. Maria's nervous system had been integrated with computer interfaces that allowed her to think at digital speeds. Ben's eyes had been replaced with cybernetic organs that could track multiple targets simultaneously, while calculating ballistics in real time, but the most impressive enhancement was one that couldn't be measured or quantified. These soldiers had been trained to think like humans while fighting like something else entirely. They retained all the creativity, adaptability, and determination that made humans dangerous, but they had been given the tools to use those traits against species that were physically superior. "The Vorthons think they understand warfare," Turner explained. "They think it's about strength and fear. They're wrong. Warfare is about intelligence, adaptation, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. And humans have been perfecting warfare for thousands of years." Dr. Clark brought up intelligence reports on Vorthon psychology. "They're pack hunters by nature, but they rely on intimidation and brute force. They've never encountered an enemy that could match their physical capabilities while surpassing their tactical intelligence. More importantly," Nick Hayes added, "they've never fought an enemy that could turn their own strengths against them. Their heightened senses make them vulnerable to sensory warfare. Their pack mentality makes them predictable. Their reliance on fear makes them vulnerable to psychological tactics." As the briefing concluded, Admiral Stone entered the room. The old soldier looked tired, but his eyes were sharp with determination. "The Vorthons have been terrorizing the galaxy for too long," he said. "They think they're the apex predators of the universe. It's time to remind them that humans are still here." Turner stood at attention. "Sir, Delta Force Zero is ready for deployment." Stone nodded. "Your transport is waiting. The USS Nightfall has been prepared for this mission. Captain Roy Mitchell will get you to Kepler 442b without detection." As the team filed out of the briefing room, Morrison caught Turner's arm. "Alex, what you're about to do, ... It's going to change everything. The galaxy is going to know that humans are more than just another developing species." Turner's expression was calm, but Morrison could see the fire burning behind his eyes. "Good. It's time the galaxy remembered that the most dangerous predators are the ones who choose when to hunt." The elevator ride to the surface seemed to take forever. When the doors opened, Morrison stepped out into the Colorado sunlight. But his mind was still in the depths of the mountain with 12 soldiers, who were about to remind the universe that humans were still the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The USS Nightfall dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, its advanced stealth systems making it invisible to all known sensors. Captain Roy Mitchell guided the ship through the asteroid field that surrounded the system, using the rocky debris to mask their approach. "Jesus Christ," Mitchell whispered as he stared at the main display. The beautiful blue-green world of Kepler 442b was surrounded by a fleet of Vorthan warships. Dozens of massive vessels hung in orbit like black daggers pointed at the planet's heart. Energy beams lanced down from the ships, turning the crystal cities of the Zephyrians into molten slag. Alex Turner stood behind the captain's chair, his enhanced eyes taking in every detail of the enemy fleet. His cybernetic implants were already calculating attack patterns, identifying weak points, and planning infiltration routes. The other members of Delta Force Zero stood silently around the bridge, each one studying the tactical situation with inhuman intensity. "How many ships?" Turner asked. 47 combat vessels, Mitchell replied, plus support ships and troop transports. The Vorthans aren't just occupying the planet, they're systematically destroying it. Maria Santos stepped forward, her fingers dancing over a portable interface that connected directly to her nervous system. "I'm picking up their communication frequencies. They're coordinating bombing runs on the major population centers. Zephyrians are hiding in underground shelters, but the Vorthans are using ground-penetrating weapons to dig them out." Through the ship's sensors they could see the devastation below. The beautiful crystal spires that had once reached toward the stars were now broken stumps. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires, and the blue oceans were stained with ash. In the cities, Vorthan ground forces moved through the streets like a plague, dragging terrified Zephyrians from their hiding places. "How long do we have?" Turner asked. "Doctor." Sam Clark consulted his readings. "Based on the current rate of destruction, the Vorthans will have eliminated the entire Zephyrian population within 72 hours. They're not just conquering the planet, they're committing genocide." Turner's jaw tightened. He had read the reports about Vorthan tactics, but seeing it in person was different. These weren't soldiers fighting a war. They were predators playing with their food. "All right, people," Turner said. "We go in quiet, no big explosions, no dramatic confrontations. We're ghosts until I say otherwise." "Maria, can you get us access to their communication network?" Maria nodded, her cybernetic implants already working to crack the Vorthan encryption. "Give me 10 minutes. Their security is good, but it's not designed to stop human hackers. Ben, I want you positioned on the primary command ship. Katie, you're with me. We're going to introduce the Vorthans to the concept of fear." The team moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years, running simulations and practicing tactics against every known alien species. But this was their first real combat mission, their first chance to prove that humans could stand against the galaxy's apex predators. The infiltration began with Ben Parker. Using a one-man stealth pod, he transferred from the Nightfall to the largest Vorthan ship in the fleet. The pod was so small and so well shielded that it appeared on sensors as nothing more than a piece of space debris. Ben slipped through the ship's docking bay like a shadow, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to move between the patrols without being detected. The interior of the Vorthan ship was a maze of dark corridors and brutal architecture. Everything was designed to intimidate, from the razor-sharp decorations to the dim red lighting that cast sinister shadows. Ben moved through it all like he was born to it, his cybernetic eyes adjusting to the darkness and his enhanced hearing picking up the approach of guards long before they came into view. He found his position in the ship's upper sections, where the communication arrays and sensor equipment were located. Setting up his rifle, Ben began to study the patterns of the Vorthan crew. Who were the officers? Who were the essential personnel? Who would cause the most panic if they suddenly disappeared? Meanwhile, Maria Santos was working her own kind of magic. Her consciousness dove into the Vorthan computer network like a shark into bloody water. The alien security systems were sophisticated, but they were designed to stop other aliens. Not humans who thought in completely different ways. Within minutes, she had access to their tactical communications. She could hear the Vorthan commanders, coordinating their attacks, discussing their progress like butchers planning a slaughter. The casual cruelty in their voices made her enhanced heart rate spike with anger. "Turner," she whispered into her communicator. "I'm in their system. I can see everything they're doing." "Good," Turner's voice came back. "Time to start the show." The first Vorthan to die was a patrol leader on the ship's lower deck. He was walking his rounds, checking on the weapon systems, when a shadow detached itself from the wall behind him. Alex Turner moved with inhuman speed, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to cover the distance between them in the blink of an eye. The Vorthan was 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor that could stop most energy weapons. But Turner's combat knife was made of materials that didn't exist in nature, and his augmented strength let him drive it through the alien's neck with surgical precision. The creature died without making a sound. Turner dragged the body into a maintenance closet and activated his communicator. "First target down, Maria. Can you edit the security footage?" "Already done," Maria replied. "As far as their computers know, that patrol leader is still making his rounds." The second kill was Ben Parker's. Through his rifle scope, he watched a Vorthan officer on the bridge giving orders to bombard a Zephyrian hospital. The alien was laughing as he directed the destruction, taking pleasure in the murder of innocents. Ben's shot was calculated to perfection. The bullet existed in quantum superposition until it hit its target, making it impossible to track or intercept. The Vorthan officer's head simply exploded in a shower of alien blood and brain matter. The bridge erupted in chaos. The other Vorthan spun around, trying to find the source of the attack, but Ben was already gone. His position was 3 decks away, hidden in the shadows of the ship's superstructure. "Bridge officer down," Ben reported. "They're panicking." Turner smiled as he claimed his second victim. This one was a weapons specialist in the ship's armory. The alien never saw Turner coming, never knew that death was stalking him through the corridors of his own ship. One moment he was checking the torpedo systems, the next he was bleeding out on the floor with his throat cut. "2 more down," Turner whispered. "Katie, how are you doing?" Katie Young was in the ship's engineering section, and she was having the time of her life. The Vorthans had built their weapons with typical alien arrogance, never considering that someone might turn their own systems against them. Katie was a master of making things explode, and she was surrounded by the most advanced explosive devices in the galaxy. "I'm rigging their torpedo magazine," she whispered back. "When they try to fire on the planet again, they're going to get a very big surprise." As the hours passed, the Vorthans began to realize that something was wrong. Officers were disappearing. Security feeds were showing empty corridors where guards should be standing. Equipment was malfunctioning in ways that made no sense. Commander Scara stood on the bridge of his flagship, his massive frame radiating anger and confusion. He had conquered 17 worlds and never faced an enemy that could hide from his sensors or match his warriors in combat. But now his own ship was being infiltrated by ghosts. "Find them!" he roared at his subordinates. "Whatever is on my ship, I want it dead." But the Vorthans couldn't find what they couldn't understand. They were used to fighting enemies that met them face to face, that relied on superior numbers or better technology. They had never faced humans who fought with cunning and patience, who turned their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. Maria Santos was deep in their computer systems now, learning everything about their military structure. She discovered their fleet disposition, their attack plans, their communication codes. More importantly, she learned about their psychology. "Turner," she whispered, "I've found something interesting. The Vorthans have never retreated from a battle. Ever. It's considered the ultimate shame in their culture. They would rather die than run away." "Good to know," Turner replied as he claimed another victim. "We'll use that against them." The killing continued throughout the night. Ben Parker picked off officers from impossible distances, his shot so precise that the Vorthons couldn't even tell where they were coming from. Turner stalked through the ship like a demon, claiming victims with surgical precision. Katie Young turned the ship's own weapons into death traps, rigging systems to explode when the Vorthons tried to use them, but the real psychological warfare was just beginning. Maria Santos began broadcasting messages through the ship's communication system, not words but sounds. The screams of the Zephyrians being tortured below, the death rattles of Vorthon soldiers, and underneath it all, a sound that no Vorthon had ever heard before, human laughter. Commander Scare paced back and forth in his private quarters like a caged animal. The massive Vorthon warrior had ruled through fear for decades, crushing entire civilizations under his clawed feet. But now, for the first time in his life, he was the one who was afraid. The reports kept coming in. Another officer found dead in the weapons bay, his throat cut so cleanly that the medics couldn't explain how it had been done. A squad of guards who had simply vanished from their posts, leaving behind only their weapons and armor. Security cameras that showed empty corridors one moment and blood-soaked walls the next. "Sir," his second-in-command, Captain Vex, entered the room with obvious reluctance. The younger Vorthon's natural armor was dull with stress, and his eyes darted constantly to the shadows. "The crew is asking permission to abandon ship. They're saying the vessel is cursed." Scar's massive fist slammed into the wall, leaving a crater in the reinforced metal. "Cursed! We are Vorthons. We do not believe in curses. We are the apex predators of this galaxy." "Then explain what's happening," Vex challenged, his voice cracking with fear. 63 of our warriors are dead or missing. We haven't seen the enemy. We don't know how they're getting in or how they're killing our people. The remaining crew is terrified to walk the corridors alone." Before Scare could respond, the lights in his quarters flickered and went out. In the darkness, they heard something that made their blood freeze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Getting closer, both Vorthons drew their weapons, energy rifles that could punch through starship armor. Their enhanced vision allowed them to see clearly in the dark, but the corridors outside showed nothing but empty space. Then they heard a voice. Human voice, speaking in perfect Vorthon. "Hello, Scare, we need to talk." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Scare spun around, trying to find the source, but saw only shadows. "Show yourself, coward." Scare roared, "Face me like a warrior." A laugh echoed through the room. Not the cruel laughter of a Vorthon enjoying the suffering of prey, but something else. Something that suggested the speaker was enjoying a private joke. "Face you? But I'm right here." Alex Turner stepped out of the shadows like he had been part of them. He appeared to be an ordinary human, smaller than either Vorthon, wearing black armor that seemed to absorb light, but his eyes were wrong. They moved too fast, calculated too much, saw too clearly. Scare fired his rifle immediately. The energy bolt should have vaporized Turner where he stood. Instead, the human moved like liquid. The bolt passing through empty air where he had been a microsecond before. Captain Vex tried to flank Turner, moving with the speed and grace that made Vorthons such feared warriors. But Turner was already turning, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to track multiple opponents simultaneously. A knife appeared in his hand as if by magic, and Vex found himself stumbling backward with a deep cut across his weapon arm. "Impressive," Turner said, his voice calm and conversational. "Your species really is built for combat. Too bad you've never learned to fight smart." Scare charged, using his massive size and natural armor as weapons. He was 8 feet tall and weighed over 400 pounds of muscle and bone. He had torn through starship hulls with his bear claws. Turner didn't try to block or dodge. Instead, he moved like water, redirecting Scar's momentum and using the Vorthon's own strength against him. Scare found himself crashing into the wall he had just punched, his armor cracking from the impact. "You see," Turner continued, as if nothing had happened, "you think strength is everything. You think fear is a weapon. But you've never met humans." Before, Vex tried to call for backup, but found that his communicator was dead. Turner smiled at the younger Vorthon's confusion. "My partner is very good with electronics. Maria has been listening to your conversations for hours. She knows your tactical plans, your security codes, your personal files. Did you know that you have a weakness in your armor plating just below the third ridge? Right about here. Turner's knife moved too fast to see. Vex looked down to see blood leaking from a tiny wound that had somehow penetrated his natural armor. That wasn't a killing blow, Turner explained. Just a demonstration. I could have opened your throat, but I want you alive to deliver a message. Scare struggled to his feet, his body aching from the impact. He had never been outfought so easily, had never felt so helpless against a smaller opponent. What are you? He gasped. I'm a human, Turner replied simply. And humans are persistence predators. Do you know what that means? Both Vorthons stared at him with growing terror. It means we don't give up. Ever. It means we track our prey for days, weeks, months if necessary. It means we learn everything about our enemies before we kill them. And it means we're at our most dangerous when we're angry. Turner's expression hardened, and right now we're very angry. We've been watching you for years, Scare. We've seen what you do to peaceful civilizations. We've watched you torture innocents for sport. We've counted every life you've taken, every world you've destroyed. The human reached into his armor and pulled out a small device. When he activated it, the room filled with sound. The screams of the Zephyrians being tortured below. The cries of children calling for their parents. The desperate pleas of a dying civilization. This is what you do, Turner said quietly. This is why we're here. Scare tried to speak, but Turner held up a hand for silence. I want you to send a message to your empire. Tell them that humans are no longer hiding in the shadows. Tell them that Earth has decided to take an active interest in galactic affairs. Tell them that species who prey on the innocent will face consequences. Turner moved closer, and both Vorthons could see something in his eyes that made them understand why their warriors were disappearing. Tell them that we know where their homeworlds are. Tell them that we know where their families live. Tell them that if they continue their genocide, they will discover what it feels like to be hunted by something more dangerous than they are. The lights came back on, and Turner was gone. Simply vanished as if he had never been there. The only evidence of his presence was Vex's wounded arm, and the terrifying knowledge that something had been in their most secure room, something that could kill them both whenever it chose. Sir, Vex whispered, his voice shaking. What do we do? Scare looked around his quarters, seeing shadows where none had existed before. Every corner could hide an enemy. Every sound could signal death. Send the message, he said finally. All ships, emergency withdrawal, we're leaving this system. But, sir, the Empire will consider this retreat a sign of weakness. Will be demoted, possibly executed. Scar's laugh was bitter. Better to face execution later than death now. Whatever these humans are, they're not like the other prey species. They're not just fighting back, they're hunting us. The message went out across the Vorthon fleet, emergency withdrawal. All ships to return to Imperial space immediately. But even as the orders were transmitted, the killing continued. Ben Parker claimed 3 more officers with shots that seemed to come from impossible angles. Katie Young's sabotage work began to pay off as weapon systems exploded and engine rooms caught fire. Maria Santos turned the ship's own security systems against their crews, locking Vorthons in compartments and flooding sections with deadly radiation. But the most terrifying part was the psychological warfare. The humans had learned to use the Vorthons' own enhanced senses against them. They broadcast sounds that triggered fear responses in the alien brain. They used chemical compounds that smelled like death to Vorthon noses. They played recordings of human laughter at frequencies that caused physical pain to Vorthon hearing. The mighty Vorthon fleet, which had conquered 17 worlds without a single defeat, began to break apart under the assault of 12 humans. Ships started to leave orbit without orders, their crews too terrified to stay and fight an enemy they couldn't see or understand. Captain Roy Mitchell watched from the bridge of the Nightfall as the alien fleet began its retreat. I'll be damned, he whispered. They're actually running. On the planet below, the Zephyrians emerged from their shelters to see the Vorthan ships fleeing into space. Ambassador Lyra Christhart stared up at the sky with tears of relief streaming down her crystalline face. "They're leaving," she whispered. "But who made them leave? Who answered our call for help?" She would have her answer soon enough. But first, Turner and his team had one more message to deliver. As the last Vorthan ship prepared to jump to hyperspace, Maria Santos hacked into their communication system one final time. "This is Earth," Turner's voice echoed across the retreating fleet. "We are humanity. We have been watching the galaxy for 50 years, and we are not impressed with what we've seen. Consider this your only warning. The age of predators terrorizing the innocent is over. The next time we have to come looking for you, we won't be so merciful." The transmission ended, and the Vorthan fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them the knowledge that something new had entered the galactic stage. Something that made even apex predators run in terror on Kepler 442b. The Zephyrians began to rebuild their shattered world, knowing that somewhere in the darkness of space, Earth was watching and protecting those who could not protect themselves. The emergency signal reached the Vorthan homeworld of Kruger Prime, 3 days after the fleet's retreat from Kepler 442b. Emperor Thax, supreme ruler of the Vorthan Empire, listened to Commander Scar's report with growing disbelief and rage. "You retreated?" Thax's voice echoed through his throne room like thunder. The massive Emperor was even larger than Scar, his black armor decorated with the skulls of conquered species. "You abandoned a conquest because of ghosts and shadows?" Scar knelt before his Emperor, his own impressive size dwarfed by the alien. "Ruler, my lord, these were not ordinary enemies. They were not like the other prey species we have conquered. They moved like shadows, killed without being seen, and turned our own ships against us." "Humans," Thax spat. "A species barely out of their home system. They achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. They should be easy prey. That is what we thought, my lord. We were wrong." Emperor Thax stood from his throne, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber. "Then we will correct this mistake. Alert the Crimson Talons. If our regular forces cannot handle humans, we will send our very best." The Crimson Talons were the elite of the elite, the most feared unit in the Vorthan military. They were Vorthans who had been surgically enhanced beyond even their species' natural capabilities. Their aggression had been amplified, their reflexes quickened, their weapons integrated directly into their bodies. They were perfect killing machines, designed for situations where regular Vorthan forces were not enough. Within hours, 3 massive warships departed Kruger Prime, carrying 300 of the galaxy's most dangerous warriors toward the Kepler 442 system. Their mission was simple: find the humans and destroy them completely, but the humans were no longer at Kepler-442b. Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the USS Nightfall as it moved silently through space toward the Vorthan border worlds. His team had spent the past week studying intelligence reports and planning their next move. "Sir," Maria Santos reported, her cybernetic implants glowing as she processed data streams, "the Vorthans have sent their elite units after us. 3 ships, heavy escort, carrying what their files call Crimson Talons." "Enhanced soldiers?" Turner asked. "More than that. These are Vorthans who have been surgically modified to be even more aggressive and deadly. They're designed to be unstoppable." Turner smiled. "Perfect. We'll use that against them." Dr. Sam Clark looked up from his research station. "I've been analyzing the data we collected from the Vorthan ships. Their enhancement process has a weakness. The increased aggression makes them more predictable, and the surgical modifications create vulnerabilities in their nervous systems." "What kind of vulnerabilities?" Katie Young asked, already thinking about how to exploit them. "They're enhanced. Senses can be overloaded. Their modified nervous systems are susceptible to certain frequencies, and their increased aggression makes them prone to making tactical mistakes when they're angry." Turner nodded. "Then we'll make them very angry." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of waiting for the Crimson Talons to find them, the humans would strike first. They would hit Vorthan supply depots, communication relays, and military outposts along the border. They would make the Vorthans chase them across multiple star systems, stretching their forces thin and making them desperate. The first target was a Vorthan fuel depot in the Zarian system. The facility supplied energy for dozens of warships and was considered impregnable. It was defended by automated weapon systems, energy shields, and a garrison of elite guards. The USS Nightfall approached the depot using an asteroid field for cover. Captain Roy Mitchell guided the ship through the rocky maze with the skill of a master pilot, his enhanced nervous system allowing him to react to threats faster than any computer. Deploying infiltration teams, Turner announced. The attack began with Ben Parker. The sniper positioned himself on a nearby asteroid and began picking off the depot's guards with shots that seemed to come from impossible distances. His quantum bullets existed in superposition until they hit their targets, making them undetectable by Vorthan sensors. While Ben created chaos outside, Turner and Katie Young infiltrated the facility itself. The depot's security systems were designed to stop Vorthan-level threats, but the humans moved too fast and thought too differently for the alien technology to track. Katie planted explosives throughout the facility's fuel storage areas while Turner systematically eliminated the garrison. The guards never saw him coming, never knew what killed them. He moved like a shadow through their ranks, leaving only bodies in his wake. Maria Santos attacked the depot's computer systems from orbit, turning their own security cameras into weapons that fired blinding bursts of light. She overloaded their communication arrays and made their life support systems play human music at volumes that caused physical pain to Vorthan ears. Within 2 hours, the fuel depot was a burning ruin. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, and the message was clear: humans could strike anywhere, anytime. The Crimson Talons received the news while en route to Kepler 442b. Their commander, General Razor, was a massive Vorthan, whose entire body had been replaced with cybernetic enhancements. His natural claws had been replaced with energy blades, his eyes with targeting computers, his brain with combat software. "Change course," he ordered his fleet. "The humans are not at Kepler 442b. They're hitting our supply lines. We hunt them in the Zarian system." But by the time the Crimson Talons reached Zarian, the humans were gone. They had struck a communication relay in the Taurus sector, destroying the equipment and leaving behind recordings of human laughter broadcast on all Vorthan frequencies. The chase continued for weeks. The humans would strike a target, disappear, before reinforcements arrived, and then hit another facility light years away. They moved faster than seemed possible, struck harder than should have been feasible for such a small force. The psychological warfare was just as devastating as the physical attacks. Maria Santos hacked into Vorthan military networks and spread rumors about human capabilities. She created false intelligence reports suggesting that Earth had thousands of ships and millions of enhanced soldiers. She made the Vorthans believe they were facing an invasion force rather than a 12-person team. The effect on Vorthan morale was catastrophic. Soldiers who had never known fear began to panic at shadows. Officers who had conquered worlds started jumping at unexpected sounds. The mere mention of humans was enough to send entire units into states of nervous breakdown. General Razor grew increasingly frustrated as his prey remained always one step ahead. His enhanced combat programming demanded direct confrontation, but the humans refused to give him the battle he craved. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost contact with 17 border facilities in the past month. Our supply lines are in chaos, and our forces are spread across dozens of systems trying to chase these phantoms." Razor's cybernetic eyes glowed with artificial fury. "Then we give them what they want. We make them come to us." The trap was set. At Omega Station, a massive military complex that served as the Vorthan Empire's primary weapons research facility, Razor leaked false intelligence suggesting that the station contained information about Vorthan plans to attack Earth directly. The bait was too tempting for the humans to ignore. Turner and his team analyzed the intelligence and decided to take the risk. "It's obviously a trap," Maria pointed out as they studied the station's defenses. Of course it is, Turner agreed. But it's also an opportunity. If we can destroy their primary weapons facility, we'll set their military development back by decades. The USS Nightfall approached Omega Station under full stealth, but this time the Vorthans were ready. General Razor had positioned his 3 ships in a perfect ambush formation, with overlapping fields of fire that would make escape impossible. "Contact," Captain Mitchell announced as Vorthan ships suddenly appeared around them. 3 heavy cruisers, full complement of Crimson Talons. They've got us surrounded. Turner studied the tactical display with calm calculation. Then we'll have to go through them. What followed was the first direct confrontation between human and Vorthan forces since the conflict began. The Nightfall's advanced stealth technology allowed it to remain partially invisible even while under fire, but the Crimson Talons were too numerous and too aggressive to avoid completely. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Mitchell reported as energy bolts struck their ship. "We're taking heavy damage." "All teams to boarding positions," Turner ordered. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The Crimson Talons boarded the Nightfall through multiple hull breaches, expecting to find a ship full of terrified humans. Instead, they found themselves in a carefully prepared killing ground. Turner's team had spent years training for ship-to-ship combat. They knew every corridor, every ventilation shaft, every hiding place on their vessel. The Crimson Talons, for all their enhancements, were fighting on enemy territory against opponents who understood the battlefield better than they did. The battle was swift and brutal. Enhanced Vorthan warriors found themselves outmaneuvered by humans who moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. Katie Young's explosive traps turned entire sections of the ship into death chambers. The news of General Razor's defeat spread through the Vorthan Empire like wildfire. The Crimson Talons, the most feared warriors in the galaxy, had been destroyed by a handful of humans. 3 of the Empire's most advanced warships had been reduced to floating debris. The invincible Vorthan military machine had been broken by an enemy they had dismissed as weak prey. Emperor Thax stood in his throne room, surrounded by his remaining generals and advisors. The massive alien ruler had never known defeat, had never faced an enemy that could not be conquered through superior strength and ruthless violence. Now he stared at the reports of his force's destruction with something approaching disbelief. "Impossible," he growled, his claws leaving gouges in the metal armrest of his throne. "Humans are a primitive species. They should not be capable of this." Admiral Voss, his chief military advisor, approached the throne with obvious reluctance. "My lord, perhaps we have underestimated them. Our intelligence reports indicate that humans have been observing galactic civilization for decades. They may have been preparing for this moment." "Preparing for what?" Thax demanded. "War, my lord. Total war against species like us." Before Thax could respond, the throne room's communication system activated. But this was not a message from Vorthan forces. The signal was coming from outside the Empire, broadcast on emergency frequencies that reached every ship and every world. Simultaneously, the image that appeared was of a human male standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a starship. He wore black armor and moved with the controlled grace of a professional warrior. When he spoke, his words were translated into perfect Vorthan. "I am Alex Turner of the Earth Defense Initiative. I'm speaking to Emperor Thax and the rulers of the Vorthan Empire." The throne room fell silent. Guards reached for their weapons, but there was nothing to fight. The human was speaking to them from across the galaxy, untouchable and unafraid. "Your forces have been defeated," Turner continued. "Your elite units have been destroyed. Your supply lines have been shattered. You have learned what it means to be hunted by something more dangerous than yourselves." Emperor Thax rose from his throne, his massive form trembling with rage. "Human! You dare speak to me in my own palace? I will see your species burned from the galaxy." Turner's expression did not change. "No, you won't, because you're going to listen to what I have to say next." The image shifted, showing views of Vorthan worlds from orbit. Military installations, population centers, government buildings. all seen from the perspective of ships that should not have been able to penetrate Vorthan space undetected. These are live feeds from your 17 core worlds, Turner explained. For the past month, while you've been chasing us through the border systems, our reconnaissance teams have been mapping every target of value in your empire. We know where your leaders live. We know where your families are. We know the location of every important facility, every strategic resource, every point of weakness in your civilization. The Vorthan generals exchanged terrified glances. Their empire's security had been completely compromised without them even knowing it. This is how humans fight war, Turner continued. We don't just attack your military. We study your entire civilization. We learn your weaknesses, your fears, your dependencies, and then we use that knowledge to make you understand that continuing to fight us would be suicide. Admiral Voss stepped forward. What do you want, human? It's justice, Turner replied simply. The Vorthan Empire will immediately cease all military operations against peaceful civilizations. You will withdraw from all conquered territories. You will pay reparations to the species you have harmed. And you will submit to monitoring by the Earth Defense Initiative to ensure compliance. Emperor Thax's laughter was like the roar of a wounded beast. You think 12 humans can dictate terms to an empire of billions? You think your primitive species can challenge the greatest military force in the galaxy? Turner's smile was cold and predatory. Emperor Thax, you still don't understand what you're dealing with. Let me show you. The image changed again, this time showing the interior of a Vorthan military academy on the homeworld itself. Young Vorthan warriors were training in combat techniques, unaware that they were being watched by hidden cameras. Right now, there are human operatives on every one of your core worlds, Turner explained. They've been there for weeks, invisible to your security forces, studying your society from the inside. They've identified every strategic target, every critical infrastructure point, every leader who matters. The camera view shifted to show a massive industrial complex that produced Vorthan warships, then to a power generation facility that supplied energy to an entire continent, then to a government building where higher-ranking officials were meeting in what they thought was complete security. With a single command from me, those operatives can bring your entire civilization to its knees, Turner said. Your power grids will fail. Your communication networks will collapse. Your military production will cease. Your food distribution systems will break down. And all of this will happen simultaneously across all 17 of your worlds. The throne room was completely silent now. Every Vorthan present understood the implications of what they were hearing. The humans had not just defeated their military forces. They had infiltrated their entire civilization. But we're not going to do that, Turner continued, because we're not like you. We don't kill innocents for sport. We don't torture civilians for entertainment. We only fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Emperor Thax sank back into his throne, his rage replaced by something he had never experienced before. Complete and total defeat. However, Turner's voice hardened, if the Vorthan Empire continues its predatory behavior, if you attack another peaceful civilization, if you harm another innocent being, then you will discover what total war with humanity actually looks like. And I promise you, it will be the last mistake your species ever makes. The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthan leadership in stunned silence. For long minutes, no one spoke. Finally, Admiral Voss broke the quiet. My lord, what are your orders? Thax stared at the empty screen where Turner's image had been. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy like this. The humans had not just outfought his forces, they had outthought them. They had turned the Vorthan's own strengths against them and exposed weaknesses that the Empire had never known it possessed. Send the message, Thax said finally, his voice hollow. With defeat, all forces are to withdraw to our core territories immediately. All offensive operations are suspended pending further orders. Sir? Voss asked in confusion. Do it, Thax roared. Send the withdrawal order to every ship, every commander, every occupied world. The humans have won. As the orders went out across the Vorthan Empire, a new message was broadcast across the galaxy. Not on military frequencies this time, but on civilian communication channels that reached every species and every world. "This is Earth calling all civilizations," Triller's voice announced. "The Vorthan Empire has agreed to cease its predatory activities and withdraw from all conquered territories. The age of apex predators terrorizing innocent species is over." On Kepler 442b, Ambassador Lyra Christhart stood in the rebuilt plaza of New Harmony, listening to the transmission with tears of joy streaming down her crystalline face. Around her, other Zephyrians emerged from their homes to hear the news that their nightmare was finally over. "Effective immediately," Turner continued, "Earth is establishing the Galactic Protection Initiative. Any civilization that faces aggression from a militarily superior force may request assistance. We will respond to such requests with all necessary force." In the depths of space, dozens of alien civilizations received the message with a mixture of hope and amazement. Species that had lived in fear for generations suddenly realized that they were no longer alone. There was a new power in the galaxy, one that used its strength to protect rather than to prey. The message concluded with words that would be remembered for centuries to come. "To the peaceful civilizations of the galaxy, know that Earth stands with you. To the predator species who think strength gives them the right to terrorize others, know that Earth stands against you. We are humanity, we are your guardians and your judgment. And we do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not fail." On the bridge of the USS Nightfall, Turner stood looking out at the stars with his team around him. Their mission was complete, but he knew it was really just the beginning. "Sir," Maria Santos said, monitoring communication channels across the galaxy, "we're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different civilizations." "It seems word is spreading fast," Turner nodded. "Then we'd better get ready. The galaxy is about to learn what it means to have humanity watching over it." Admiral Stone's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Delta Force Zero, this is Command. Outstanding work. How do you feel about expanding the program?" Turner looked at his team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had carried them through their first mission. "Sir," he replied, "I think it's time the galaxy met more humans."